Sai to all of you. Thank you, Brother Praveen, for this nice and warm introduction and for the warm welcome. Thank you, Sai family of Boston, for inviting me, considering me worthy of sharing my thoughts on the divine on such a powerful and beautiful, magnificent occasion that is dedicated solely to paying respects and gratitude to the divine teacher. It is indeed a great honor, and therefore I am very grateful to each and every one of you for giving me this opportunity, for allowing me into your homes and taking time for this time of deep introspection and gratitude. Everyone has a very divine story with our beloved Bhagavan. Some of us call him Swami, some of us call him Baba, some of us call him Bhagavan. It doesn't matter how we address him. Each one of us has a very beautiful story, a story of how we came into this fold, a story of how we continue to be in this fold, a story of how we grow in this path that he has laid down for us, the path from I, me, and mine to a consciousness of interconnectedness, from the consciousness of I to the we, and we start thinking of we, and then finally we end up back again to the I, but this is a different I. It is the I that is filled with he in it. And at that point, there is no difference between I, we, and he. The journey into spirituality is very unique, very sublime, very powerful. And if you ask me, I would say unhesitatingly, as I've always believed, that the very purpose of life is to unravel the spiritual dimension that lies within us. I wasn't aware of this, of course, when I was 18 years old and I joined Swami's college. I joined there because that was the only place available for someone like me whose parents were transferred from Bombay, and there was no place for me to look for a residential college. My father was transported or transferred to a very different, a distant village from Delhi, way up in the north, where there were no scope for colleges and so on. And so circumstances actually led me to Swami. We were not devotees of Baba at that point. I was raised in a very orthodox Brahmin, South Indian family. And so Baba, the concept of Baba, his approach, his attitude towards religion of love and accepting all religions, everything was very new. Not only to me as a youngster, but to my whole family. But then a door opened there, which otherwise would have been closed forever. Because I remember when my grandmother first heard of this, she said, no, I don't want any of us in our family to get associated with any such Babas. I can't believe that's more than 40 years ago, but yeah. And so the doors were almost closed, but then somebody told them, listen, it's free education. You don't have to pay anything for your son to study there. And since you all are looking for college, that's a good place to be. Suddenly the door opened. It is said in the Gita There are four types of devotees, all get an audience with the divine, all have a reason to walk their path towards the divine. Some of them seek wealth and they lean on the divine and they ask the divine, and suddenly the door opens, and that is their entry into the divine. Some of them are searching for spiritual knowledge. They find the teachings profound, and that is their entry into the divinity, into the world of the divine, into Salokya, if you will, the divine loka. And some are sick and they look for healing. And when healing happens, or in search of healing, they stumble upon this divine path and they enter into this divine loka. And they adopt the name and the form to their choice and the liking and the teachings and so on. So this is universal across all religions, across all faiths. There are reasons what clicks rather, in people's lives, certain circumstances. It could be a book in your life that opened your door to Sai. It could be an event in your life that opened your door to Sai. It could have been an illness, or it could have been a lottery. I don't know. But it never tires me to listen to people's stories, how they came into Swami's fold, because what amazes me is the uniqueness in everyone's story, in everyone's path. The only thing that is common is Sai himself. He is the common goal, but there are so many, many, many doors that lead to this divine mansion, Sai. So that door opened for me. And so my father said, okay, go and see what it is all about and let me know. And so what attracted me to Puttaparthi was the fact that, number one, I could be away from my parents and the rest of the family who otherwise were constantly nagging me to study. So that was a good break. So I said, thank God. And the second reason why I kind of liked Puttaparthi even before I joined, even before I went there, was simply because it was a village. Now you might ask, wait a minute, where were you raised? I was raised in Mumbai, a city bred dog, if you will. And why did you like the village again? The concept of a village was a newly found idea at that time, because I had just seen a Hindi film called Sholay. And so there was this dacoit and all of this, and the village setup suddenly fancied me. And I said, wow, this must be a village. It has a mountains around it, so it must be something like Sholay. And therefore, I had already decided to like Puttaparthi. Baba was the last thing on my mind. So these two important reasons: one, I can stay away from my parents. I can have my own adventurous life in this great village, and so on. So that's what brought me to Swami. Today, 40 plus years later, at the age of 60, when I look back and I contemplate on my journey into the spirit, I have begun to understand and I've experienced that it has been across lifetimes. And it is many past associations with the divine principle that had brought me back again into his fold. This was not a chance that you and I can call as a coincidence, but this was a divine orchestration of sorts. I began to understand that very quickly from the day I entered Prashanti Nilayam. When I was sitting at a darshan one afternoon, very dejected, even before I joined Swami's college, I sat there because my 12th grade results had come and it was very low, and I had not got my admission to the Sai college, even though the admission at that point, being the very first batch, was very informal. Nevertheless, there was a procedure and there was certain criteria that I had to have in order to get admission. And the grades that I had earned in 12th grade was not enough for me to get into BCom. And so I sat there very dejected, very angry with Baba, having spent a few weeks there already. And I had a letter in my hand saying that you take this letter, I'm going back to Mumbai and I'll never again believe in God or in you or any such thing. Because I came here liking this place and I wanted to make a change, but it looks like it's not going to happen. Or whatever it was, something like that. I wrote an angry letter. I kept it in my pocket. And when Baba came for darshan and came towards me, I made sure I sat in the first line. I picked up the envelope and kept it in between my palms. I didn't expect him to talk to me, but he looked at me and he took a couple of steps towards me and he kept his two fingers on the envelope and he said, "Kya hai?" That was the first that he ever spoke to me. "Kya hai?" And I immediately, with all enthusiasm, said, suddenly the darkness had vanished with that simple word, "Kya hai?" And I said, "Swami, BCom, admission, Swami, BCom, BCom." BCom, I meant, was Bachelor's in Commerce. It's called BCom in India at those days. And Swami heard and he said, "BCom, be calm, be calm." And he did that and everybody around him smiled and laughed and I smiled sheepishly. I didn't know what that meant, but nevertheless, did that mean yes or no for my admission? What was it? Right? And so he left the letter, he didn't take it. He looked at the principal and did like this and walked away into the darshan line. As soon as darshan was over, I rushed to the principal. I said, "Did you see Baba spoke to me?" He said, "Yes, I saw." I said, "I told Baba, be calm." He said, "Yes, whatever you want, you can come tomorrow and see me in my office." Little did I know at that point that that moment was a momentous moment in my life, was the one that would change the trajectory of my life, the path in my life forever. I didn't realize it. The greatest things that happen in our lives come unannounced, like the Ganges that flows mightily in the plains. But when you go to the very source up in the Himalayas, it is a very small beginning. So when great beginnings happen in your life, they don't begin with a bang, not necessarily, not all the time, especially in spiritual path. They are very subtle, very soft. And before you know, you're in that path. I'm sure many of you or all of you can relate to what I'm saying here. Though experiences may change, our stories may be different, the essence of our stories, I don't think will be different. And so we enjoy the flavor of each other's stories and the lessons that we learn from them. Guru Poornima is one such occasion which takes me back to that moment, that powerful moment in my life. Because 2 years ago, before that, around 2 years ago, I think I was around 16 or so, and it was an occasion I was in a temple, a Murugan temple dedicated to Lord Karthik, the son of Shiva. And there were a lot of them. It was an important day. And so, and we being devotees of Muruga in our family, he's our family deity, if you will, Ishta Devata or Kula Devata. And so we were there and I was ushered in through that mass of crowd. And we went all the way to the front with my father, my uncle, and I just held the hand and then we just went through. Anyway, long story short, right in the front, there was this priest with a flame, a camphor flame in his hand. He was apparently in a trance. And he was actually having, please don't try this at home. I mean, if you have children listening, tell them, don't listen to Sunder uncle or put some cotton in their ears. And so he had camphor in his hands and he was waving, apparently in a trance. So there are moments where the brain blocks off all the nervous stimuli, and so nothing happens. Anyway, apart from that, I was just fascinated. How is he doing it? How is he doing this? And so he finished that, and then he started distributing vibhuti and kumkum, half in that trance state, and everybody was going towards him, getting that. And then he comes to me, and he must have been surprised to see a young boy in that crowd of all otherwise big, big uncles. And so he was there and he looked at me and he said, "What do you want?" And out of the blue, I told him, "I want God." I found it very fascinating because I did it more. I don't know. I'm not sure if I did it out of arrogance, but some part of me was searching for something more deep. I was thinking because I was up to neck with rituals at home, pujas, and so I could never find answers. Right? Why are gods with spears, and why are there so many demonic faces around them, and this and that, and so many questions I had, because Sanatana Dharma is a very complex philosophy, a very complex understanding of the universe, of the cosmos, and the energies. And all of those energies are within us, but then one has to learn and study them. And somewhere in the course of these thousands of years, in the last 1,000 years, we have lost that idea of learning, and we've stopped that being as part of our everyday education. And this is not a recent thing, and that's why I said in the past 1,000 years we kind of lost it with all the other foreign invasions. I think right from Mughals and so on, everybody went into their caves, and somewhere this mainstream education got changed. And then the Britishers came and so on. And then now, of course, we have a Western system, or rather, let's call it the modern system of education, which doesn't talk about any of this. So somewhere we have lost all the where we can explore, understand, um, learn about deeper meanings of life, and understand the symbolism that Sanatana Dharma, Vedas, Upanishads, and all of this, Puranas, ethics and epics and all of that represent. We miss that. Nevertheless, I don't know. I was witnessing all of that at home, and satsangs after satsangs and so on, Murugan bhajans and Shiva bhajans and all of that. But I had so many questions in my mind. And therefore, when this person was apparently at that moment, God himself speaking through him, because they said Swami Unditar in Tamil, if those of you can follow Tamil, they called that there is God in front of you. And so when he looked at me and said, Yenna Varnam, he was kind of fiery eyes, and he said, "What do you want?" I said, "I want God." And he gave a kind of a funny laugh, and he put vibhuti on my forehead. He said, "Varvar." He said, "He'll come. Your Sarathi will come." I didn't know what Sarathi meant. So my uncle explained to me, Sarathi means a guide, a charioteer. He will come, he said. And he went away. I forgot that incident, and that was the end of it. So why am I sharing that story now at this moment when I got admission into college? Because at that point I was thinking, is this the Sarathi that a Pandit told me about, or that priest told me about? Is this the Sarathi? Is Baba as the Guru? Because I was so depressed that I was about to go home. I didn't pray to him for admission in that sense of a prayer, because it didn't kind of, I didn't come to understand that I can actually pray to another human being. So it didn't click to me. So I didn't even pray. If there was something like, "Oh, I prayed and therefore he answered," even that wasn't there. I didn't pray. I didn't do anything. In fact, if anything, I was angry with him. I had a letter saying, "I don't want to believe in you anymore," and walk away. And he turned it around without me asking, "Is this my guru?" Having stayed that for a few years, a few weeks before the admission, I had exposed myself to his teachings. I had heard the stories of Baba, and I said, "These are fascinating experiences of people. Even if one iota of that is true, then my life will change. I mean, this is amazing to even believe. How can I get that first-hand experience of who he is? How can I form that belief?" And right from that age, I always believed this, and I've never looked back on that belief. And my belief is one has to have one's own direct contact with the divine, period. And I say that even today, after so many years, to every devotee, establish your own direct contact with the divine. You don't need somebody else to give you a message from the divine. It doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. You're fooling yourself if you believe that now Baba is appearing in somebody else's body, he's taking some light energy and dark energy, and he's coming and sitting and talking to you. It is utter falsehood. It is not going to get you anywhere, except that you start bowing to another person, thinking he's somehow going to relieve you from whatever it is. And so you've just moved from idols, you move to another human being, and from one human being, you move to the other. And that will go on. It's never going to end. Your direct contact with Baba is with Baba, and no one else can come in between. And to me, that was clear. So somebody else's faith, somebody else's story did not become my story, cannot become my story. I respect it. I believe it. I enjoy it as I listen to them. I thankfully, I'm grateful for that experience that they had and they were sharing with me. I do all of that, but I know in my heart that that is not my experience. Nor do I compare mine with them. No, I just say that they are so wonderful. They are so great experiences for them. It's so wonderful to see that it's a possibility. And that's all I'm looking for. Somebody tells me he had this experience of Swami's Vishwarupa Darshan. I am thrilled to listen to that. Because it shows me that there is a possibility of getting that darshan. And while I'm grateful for that, I ask for my own experience. I work towards my own experience and I seek that direct experience with the divine. And when that door opens, my dear sisters and brothers, you never look back. Then you don't need a book to keep your faith up. You don't need friends and satsangs to charge your faith. Like we say, oh, I need my batteries to be charged, as if faith is a battery. Faith is not a battery. Faith is the sun that charges all batteries. Faith is an unending source of energy that is a source of charging. It doesn't need charging. And because of that lack of that, we say, oh, my faith is shaking and I need to be charged and all of that. So when you open that door between you and the divine and you get the direct experience, pratyaksha, firsthand, then you never have to look back. You know this. Many of you have been exposed to Swami for so many, many, many years. And have been blessed with so many experiences. You know in your heart what I'm talking about is true, but I'm also sharing that with those of you who may not have had the experience. Then yearn, open that door, ask him to reveal himself to you and treasure every moment, every experience, because every one of those is what is going to transform you to make a better you. And so when I was listening to all this, I was asking, where is my guru in all of this? How do I know Swami is my guru? Where is my direct connection with him? He doesn't even know my name. True, I touch his feet because everybody else is touching his feet. I also touch his feet. I'm hoping to get something out of that. My heart was not in it though. And so the first 1.5 years after joining Baba's college, staying in the ashram, in the mandir, sleeping on the sands, and enjoying all that divine proximity, we were still a group of 60 to 100 boys, all the time around Swami, staying in the mandir. And Baba would know many of them physically, personally, because of their families being devotees and so on. And so he would talk to them, I would ask them what happened, and I would derive all of this, but it was all derived information. And deep within me, I was praying for a direct one-on-one. And so the question remained, is he my guru? And I wanted that sign. And it did happen, but it took a while, like I said, 1.5 years later. So 1979, June, I joined. 1980, we had a chance to inaugurate the hostel. And so we were moving out of the mandir to a special building that Swami had created 1 kilometer away, the boys' hostel. And so we were moving what we call the dorm these days. So we moved there. We were moving, and that was the inaugural day. And so as young boys, they said, what is it that we can do? We wanted to organize a special program for Baba, because he was coming into the hostel, boys' hostel. So what would young boys do? Um, we weren't pandits, we weren't priests. Some of us knew a little bit of Vedas, but it was all too new. Everything was very new. Some of us knew Bhangra dance. Some of us knew gymnastics and doing some stunts here and there. Everything that you and I would consider non-spiritual. And we said, why can't we offer that to Swami? We'll entertain him. We'll do that for him. Why? Why? Because that's what we know to do. And that's the beauty of it. You know, you hear the Upanishads and the Vedas talk about offer anything, if it's a leaf or a flower or a fruit, anything that you offer is accepted by the divine. There is no such thing that, oh, Devi likes only this kind of flower, so go looking for it everywhere, import it from India or elsewhere, pay hundreds of dollars and get that to offer, and Devi is pleased. If you offer a flower from your backyard, somehow that's not going to work. That is in our mind. And yet here it was in action. I learned this as a young boy. We were first met with resistance. Elders in the ashram called us for a meeting and said, are you out of your mind? They said, this is an ashram. This is not your city life. You cannot dare do such dances and all of these monkey things here. This is Puttaparthi, Prashanti Nilayam. Have you heard the meaning of Prashanti? We said, yes, but Baba is coming to our hostel. We don't know anything else. And the word was sent to Baba. He said, you know what? I will come and see what they're doing, their rehearsal. And then we'll take it from there. And then he came and saw the rehearsal and he said, Parvalede, Kotilaga emo chestunaru pillalu. He said, it's okay. Something like monkeys they're doing. Let them do. And he said, just make sure you wear pants under your lungis when you do the dance. And so on, he laughed. And there it was, a green signal from Baba. And so we performed the Bhangra dance. I was in the Bhangra dance. And then I performed some yoga, feats on the rope, because I had learned that in my school days in Villaparle in Mumbai, as part of the, at that point, it was called the Shiv Sena. Anyway, the point was, I had a chance to exhibit something and I didn't let go of that opportunity. Because in those opportunities, I was looking for a one-on-one chance where he would recognize me as an individual, not in a group, but hey, he's doing something. Who are you? What are you? I wanted that attention from him. I wanted to grab his attention. And so this opportunity came, perfect chance to do yoga on the rope. Now looking back, I know these are not coincidences. They never are. The path of yoga for me has been across many lifetimes. I know that now, and therefore it was just meant to start again at the feet of a guru. But at that point, I said, I know to do yoga on the rope. Swami was so fascinated when he saw me do that. And every time I would do an asana, basically I will climb up all the way, do asana on the rope, and he would see and he will bless. And then I will switch to another asana on the rope and he will again bless. With both his hands, he was blessing. It was, and I was looking at him, he was blessing. I was so happy. Of course, I was 30 feet up in the air doing all of that. But nevertheless, it was a moment that I can never, 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 ever forget. Nothing else mattered. Others claps and applauses, none of that mattered. For me, what mattered was, my God, Swami is looking at me. He's looking at me. And then came the fire rings and this and that. And all of those things happened. I don't want to get into that too much into detail because perhaps some of you already know those stories. But I'm coming to a main point here. The point here was, where did all that lead me to? Swami came the next day and I said, where is that fire boy? And I went and knelt to him. He said, what is your name? I said, Sunder. And that was my chance, the first in one-on-one interaction. What is your name? And I got a chance to tell my name. He patted me on my back. He knew my name. For me, that was a very big moment. And then came a chance for an interview a few months later. And in that interview, so many things happened. But one of the important things that happened in that very first interview was this establishing the guru relationship. How did that happen? And so Swami took me in and asked me, what do I want? And I said, I want to be in your room. He said, come from tomorrow. Like I said, all of that happened in sequence. Very beautiful experiences. He blessed my sister, all of that. He came out. And at the end of the interview, he started distributing prasads to everybody. And so he gave me also prasad, and he said, send this to your sister because she was expecting a child and so on and so forth. That's another story. So all that happened. And then I was holding the prasad in my hand, and it was supposed to be sent to my sister who was yearning for a child, and she had not conceived a child. And so I seen from that same basket, he has given everybody vibhuti, he's also given me that same basket and same packets of vibhuti. And I was thinking, if I send this to my sister, what do you mean? She's going to conceive and have a child? That's not going to work. There's not a miracle in this vibhuti, it's just from that basket. And then, of course, he read my mind and he kept the basket and he told everybody, look at this boy, doubting Thomas. All these young boys, modern minds, all doubting Thomas. And he told me, send that. Your sister has more faith than you. You send it. I sent it. And of course, in 9 months, she had a boy. And that's a different story, like I said. But the moment here has not ended. So he finishes that, he comes to me and I'm sitting, so he comes right over my head. And for the very first time, he waves his hand, so much so I can see under his palm. Because there was another question in my mind. How does he create out of nowhere? I mean, how is that even possible for an object to materialize from the five elements just like that? Right? And therefore, I said, I need to see it for myself from close quarters, but how could I? I had no chance. I had seen Baba creating vibhuti and so on in that 1.5 years, but all from a distance. I wanted very close, and I wasn't. I every time I seemed to have missed that chance of actually what exactly happened. And so he comes right on top of my head, and he waves his hand so much so I'm looking at his palms like this. He waves it, and then he closes, and then he opens it. And in the middle of his palm lies a beautiful silver locket with his face on one side. He shows it to me. See, Swami's face on the other one side, and the other side, Om. He shows it to everyone. Then he opens my hand and keeps it on it. He said, this is for you. Keep it. And then he said, from today, I am your Sarathi. From today, I am your Sarathi. Not ordinary Sarathi, Sanatana Sarathi. Eternal charioteer. That was my first interview with Swami. So when I walked out, there's so many things, other things that also happened, but then this really stayed so close to my heart because it confirmed what that priest said 2 years ago. Your Sarathi will come, he said. And here Swami used the same term. And he said, I am your Sarathi. From now on, he put it on she, he said, from now on. And so I bow to this teacher, eternally grateful for being the charioteer of my life. And I'm sure as you sit in the comfort of your home listening to this, you can all relate to how rich our lives have become, how our spirits have been enriched by the presence and the teachings of this divine master. who taught us not merely by discourses of philosophy or scholarly interpretations of the scriptures, but giving us very practical, down to earth discourses on the one hand, but more importantly, living a life that you and I can fashion ourselves, living a life that we can follow, laying a path that was acceptable to us, possible for us. And yet, that path contained the highest philosophy, philosophy from self to selflessness, philosophy of a journey from I to we. From that year on, for the next 15 odd years, I never looked back even once. From being an absolute novice in this idea of spirituality, doors begin to open so fast, so beautifully, so powerfully, because the environment, the atmosphere, the divine vibrations of Prashant Nilayam was perfect, perfect. For not only me, but many of us as youngsters, and I know Praveen can vouch for this himself, and so will hundreds of students, that we allowed ourselves to be sculpted by the divine sculptor. He brought out the uniqueness in each one of us. He encouraged some of us to chant Vedas. He encouraged some of us to sing bhajans. He's encouraged some of us to into gymnastics. He made me perform yoga on the rope again in the very darshan grounds. He told us to dig poles, set it up. And I think it was one Diwali evening or close to Diwali. I'm not sure at this point, or maybe one of his birthdays after that. I performed then, and then on the Shanti Vedika grounds as well another time. So he gave me ample opportunities to pursue my path. And in the years that followed, I realized this was my path. My path was yoga, meditation, not devoid of discipline or devotion. It is all together. When we say, is one path better than the other path? Which path is the best path? If yoga worked for you, can it work for me? I don't know the answer to that. But I can tell you one thing, there is no one path to God. It is all paths. And yet none of those paths. What does that mean? It is the intensity of yearning that actually leads you to a path. It is not the path alone. It's not the techniques of the path. It's not the technicality of what the path or the practice is. It is the intensity of yearning, the bhava, the spirit behind the practice is what opens these doors and attracts divine grace. If you are caught up in a place that is 1,000 miles away from your home, and you have a 4-year-old daughter who's waiting for you to come for a birthday, excuse me. If you have a 4-year-old daughter who's waiting for you to come to the home for her birthday, what is the path you're going to take to reach her? Are you going to consider, wait a minute, I only travel business class. I'm not getting the tickets. So you know what? I can't go. I'm not going to travel in what some people call economy class. I had a friend who calls it the peasant class. I'm not going to travel peasant class. No, no, no. That's way below my dignity. I only do business class. Do you think like that? You love your 4-year-old and you would do anything to get to her birthday. So you're not going to say, wait a minute, that path, this path, or should I take a train? Oh no, my God, the train is so uncomfortable. What drives you to a path is your yearning to go back home and to be with that child. Your aim is that path becomes incidental. The path is not the main thing. Path is incidental to that. So a journey of 1,000 miles, you say, let me first take a cab. Whatever is available, I want to get. And then I'll take a train if I need to, cover the rest of the leg, cover some distance by plane, maybe take a boat and cross the river if I need to. I will take all means that is necessary, one or two or four, whatever path opens up. I will keep going till I reach, because all I want is to reach my daughter's birthday. So if somebody asks you which of the path was good, you said, I don't know. I just wanted to reach. I wasn't paying attention, right? So that the bhava that takes you, that makes you yearn, that is more important. For a long time, I would ask Swami to teach me fasting. And there was once he got so angry. He said, what is this nonsense about fasting you're talking about? What is fasting? Do you know? I said, Swami, I want to fast. I want to please you. He said, I don't get pleased because you're fasting. And he gave a very beautiful story. He said, when you forget to eat because you're lost in the thought of God, that is fasting. When you stay up in the night in order to think of God, and then you keep eating like we do in Shivratri and Akhanda Bhajan time, we drink coffee and tea, and there's a buffet laid out. When we are supposed to give all that and merge into the deep contemplation of the divine, we say, oh, wait a minute, I have to eat. When you normally don't eat at that time, but we add on to that. Anyway, so Swami said, when you forget, when you're so lost in the thought of God and you forget to eat, that is fasting. That is the bhakti Radha had for Krishna. She was so lost in Krishna, she forgot to eat. And therefore, her bhakti, her practice is called fasting. You don't fast to get bhakti. In bhakti, you fast. How profound is that? So when we sit back and analyze and intellectualize which path and which one is better than the other and compare, then we are missing the point here. The point is, how badly do I want to experience divinity in this lifetime, which is a possibility. The divine experience of self-realization, the journey from I to we to he or I, like I said, at that point, I, he, we, all that loses its relevance. So we called it the I or he. So the little I, that journey, is that the final stage is not in an afterlife, certainly not in after death. No, that has never been, never will be the teachings of Vedas, Vedanta, Upanishads, and Sai. The teaching is in this lifetime. The very purpose of our life is to realize that truth, that I am not limited to my little body. I am not limited to my emotions, because all of these are transient. Where was the body I had when I was 16? It's not there anymore. Where was the body I had when I was 20? Not there. The body changes, transforms. It's born, it is going to go, it's going to decay and die. My emotions, I was sad yesterday, I'm happy today, I'm a little upset tomorrow, I'm angry the day after. Moods change. That does not define who I am. That is just my experience. I am a PhD, I am a doctorate, I am a scholar, I'm a management graduate, I am a priest, I am a yoga practitioner, I am this, I am that, but those are just qualifications. Those are my qualifications. That's not me. It indicates a little bit of what I know, but that's not me. Then who am I? Where does this I come from? Where does it go? What is it? What is this meaning of this life? It is these questions that we need to see. And Swami would say that is the very purpose of our life, is to ask, who am I? And without knowing who am I, we have already said what I want, what I don't want, what is good, what is bad. We are out judging the world, judging the people, and doing all of that. He said all of those criticisms on others that we level, the praises that we give, all of that on others, all those call of judgments that we do on others, all come from a lack of knowledge of who I am. Because he would say, when you know who you are, then you will know who the other person is, the world outside. One Swami was talking to us about education and college and so on. And there was a discussion about what all we need for laboratories and so on and so forth. And Swami said, why do you need to know all? Why do you need all these laboratories and this and that to understand what is going on in atoms and molecules and all of that? Did the sages and saints of the yore of Sanatana Dharma have these laboratories? Did they have microscopes? Did they say, oh, if I don't have those things, I'm not going to be able to know what's going on in the universe? Did they do that? And yet they were able to give us scriptures. And it is true what Swami said, because today, even today, if you go back into Sanatana Dharma, we were the first ones thousands of years ago who knew the earth was round. It is not a modern age discovery by any means. Everybody knows this, right? Not only that the earth was round, but it was suspended in the cosmos and there were other heavenly bodies around. We call that grahas. We don't call them planets, we call them grahas. What does that mean? Grahas, the word gravity comes from graha. Grahas are those bodies that have gravitational pull. This was known. The word graha is a Sanskrit word that finds in Vedic astrology, which dates back thousands of years. Thousands of years. So Baba would ask, how did they know all of this? In Surya Siddhanta, as an FYI, for those of you, the youngsters listening to this perhaps, there is a scripture called Surya Siddhanta. Nobody knows the actual date. There are debates going on as to whether it's 15,000 years old or even older than that, or 7,000 and so on. But we'll put that aside. But the subject matter of that is fascinating. It's got trigonometry, it's got arithmetic, it's got geometry, it's got formulas which we use even to this day. In addition to that, they talk about the planets. They talk about the diameter of these planets that we call planets, of course. They call grahas. Saturn. Saturn is considered the lightest of the planets. And today NASA says, oh yeah, it's almost full of hydrogen and nothing else. And so like this, and the diameter of Jupiter being the biggest planet, and it protects the Earth. And so we say Jupiter has a benevolent influence on the psyche of the individual as it passes through the zodiac. So a whole science was formed based on that. It's a different matter that people make business use of it and has misused as science. That is besides the point. But the science itself is authentic, right? This science was developed at a time when there were no laboratories, no modern equipment. How? How was this knowledge given to man? For the lack of any answer, the modern youth says, oh, this must be alien knowledge. Some aliens came and gave its knowledge. That's the best we can come up with, right? But Vedantic truths have this answer for this question as also. Swami had this answer. So Swami asks, what is it? How did they know all of this? Did they have laboratories and colleges and professors and universities? They had their gurus teaching them, but how did they know this? We had no answer. And Swami said, they knew one thing by which everything else was known. They knew one thing by which everything else was known. What is that? What is that one thing? The I. They knew themselves. They knew the answer to who am I. And that answer gave them the answer to all of their other questions. All the mysteries of the universe suddenly was answered by this one thing. A small key is all you need to enter your home. Your mansion has many rooms, bedrooms and kitchens and all of that, right? But in order to enter that, you don't need 100 other entrances. You just need one main entrance that will give you an entrance. And then you can explore the entire home. Everything becomes available to you. And that key is spiritual knowledge, or rather spiritual wisdom. And so Swami gave us that, gave us the opportunity to explore that, study that, understand that. Baba would tell us so many stories in so many manners that today, when I go back and study Upanishad or read I can immediately correlate this to what Swami had already told us. But he never said, oh, this is a Vedantic truth, this is from the Upanishads, I'm explaining to you. He just slipped it in simple. Like, for example, he would say, on, in the evening time, Sandhya Kalam Lo, he would say, in the evening time, it is dusk, it is dark, you can't see. You go step outside, you see something like a snake coiled up, and you're afraid. You say, oh my God, there is a snake. It looks like a snake. Your heart beats fast, your pulse rates races, and fear becomes real. Seeing the snake, all of the reaction begins to happen. Then your friend comes and says, why are you so standing so terrified? What happened to you? He says, no, look at, there is a snake. And the friend looks at it and says, oh my God. He rushes, he gets a flashlight, he puts it on the snake. When the light shines, you realize, oh gosh, it wasn't a snake, it was just a rope that looked like a snake. This is an analogy that is used in Upanishads for thousands of years. But Swami didn't tell us, oh, this Vedanta and Upanishad, just simply slipped it in as a simple analogy, and it makes perfect sense. So we say the world is an illusion or ego is an illusion and so on. It doesn't, illusion or ignorance doesn't come like the snake. The question here is, Swami asked us beautifully, when did the snake come? When did the snake go and when did the rope come? When did the rope come and the snake go? When did this happen? Did the snake come from somewhere and leave? No, it was my perception that changed. Before I knew it was a rope, I perceived it to be a snake. And my perception was so grounded and so real that all the experiences that I physically entertained in my body, like heart rate, pulse, fear, sweating, and all of that, everything, a whole reality was created because of a false perception. Just take that analogy. If you say this is real, look around you, look at the objects, the sofa, the television, the iPads, and so on, and all of this world around you, and say, this is real, this is real. Yes, it is. But it's based on a perception that you're holding. Just like you're seeing a snake and all reality happens. You would have run away from that place, your heart would have beaten harder, and so on. All those experiences that follow that perception is real. Or is it real? That is the question you need to ask. It is real as long as I hold on to the perception that it is a snake. When that perception of the snake itself changes, then I do not value any of my experience. I say all my experiences were unreal. Why? Because my perception itself was wrong. There was no snake, and therefore my fear was unreal. My sweating was unreal, and all of that was unreal. What was there was a rope, and what will be there is a rope. That change in perception changes the reality around us. So who creates the reality? Who creates circumstances in your life? Who draws individuals in your life? You do. I do. We co-create our reality based on the perceptions we hold in the core of our heart. That is called the core belief system. We hold a core belief system in our heart. Whatever that belief system is, I don't know, you know it yourself. For example, something like money is very important. Without money, nothing will happen in this world. In order to be comfortable, we need money. Let us assume that. I'm not arguing the good or the bad or right or wrong. I'm just saying that is one belief that most of us absorb. And if that is your core belief, then all your actions will be based on that fundamental belief. That first, let me get money. Money is a source of peace. And therefore, I have to spend my time earning money. Look around, everybody else has got money. I need money, and so on. Where does that come from? That comes from that perception that I have had. We call it perception. I call it core belief. That core belief that money is very important, so that money sits in the center of my consciousness. And my life revolves around making more money. Everything else is compromised. Money is very important. So relationships circle around money, jobs circle around money, values circle around money, right? We talk of saving the environment and all of that, and we do selfless work saving the environment, but we put our money in 401k, which is perhaps in getting invested in oil and other things which are destroying the environment. And that money is going to come back and feed us and our families. So everything we do, we remove that. No, 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 no. Let that be there. No, that's a good interest. I'm getting 20%. I'm getting 15%. If I put that in some solar type of energy, I'll get only 6% or 8% per annum. No, no, no. Let that be there. So our value system also revolves around money. Or why? Because all of that is based on that one core belief that we are holding on to. And that core belief is money is very important. And thus you have many core beliefs like this. It is okay to be old. I'm eating because I get hungry. I need to have 3 meals a day. You have to eat more to be healthy. All these are core beliefs. Everything I need this much hours of sleep. Everything that you think is very important is actually a belief system that you have constantly encouraged, constantly nurtured, and that creates the reality. So, what is the cause of our ignorance or wisdom is perception. I will pause after this one beautiful anecdote and then we'll open up. I believe I said we'll have a Q&A. So there was this perception. We are talking about perception, right? So there was two of us sitting at Swami's feet. And one of us, the other boy, coughed a little or cleared his throat. And then Swami immediately asked him, Yemtra, what happened to you? Are you not well? Are you having cough or something? He said, no, 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 Swami, I'm okay. Swami said, just tell your cough to go, it'll go. And then we just smiled. We didn't believe that. We just smiled. He said, no, no. For me, when it happens, I just tell go. It doesn't come to me. And we almost shrugged our shoulders thinking, of course it is Swami. I mean, whatever you want, you can do, right? And then the boy said, Swami, but it is you. You can do that. And Swami said, why can't you do? But because you're Swami. So what is the difference between you and me? He asked. What is the difference? You have two eyes? Yes, Swami. I have two eyes too. You have a nose? Yes, Swami. I have a nose too. You have ears? Yes, Swami. Look, he pulled his hair out. I have ears too. You have hands? I have hands. You have feet? I have feet. Walking, talking, reading, writing. You do, I do. What is the difference? He bent forward, looked into us and said, Cheppandi, ekkada undi difference? Where is the difference? And we looked into his eyes and at that moment we were both, and I can speak for myself, I was lost. I was thinking, wait a minute, where is the difference? He didn't let us enjoy that moment of no difference too much. He said, Kani undi. Yes, there is a difference. Undi. Ikkada undi. Ikkada. And he pointed to his eyes like this. He said, there is a difference. It is here. The difference is here. And we looked, what do you mean, eyes? Chupu undi. Chupu means in perspective, perception. The difference lies in your perception. ఇప్పుడు చూడండి, he said, so now listen. Your experience is that you are a very small person in this wide universe. Avuna kada cheppandi. Yes. Your experience is that you are a tiny being, a tiny presence in this vast universe. Am I right or wrong? Isn't that your experience? Yes. My experience is this vast universe is a small part in me. Is a tiny part. This universe is a tiny part in me. That is my experience. Your experience is you are a tiny part in this universe. Where does that experience come from? From Chupu, from your perspective or perception. You perceive, and thus it is your reality, and thus it is your experience. I perceive, and thus it is my reality. And what does I perceive? I perceive this universe as a small particle in my consciousness, which is much, 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 much more. And in that consciousness, I include everyone, I embrace everyone, everything. But in your consciousness, in your perception, in your core belief system, you perceive yourself as an individual, and the universe is big. And therefore, your reality will be thus. And very simply, Swami said, change your perception. Ante, change your perception. Just like Jesus said, know that the kingdom of God is within you. That's it. Easily said, right? But that's it. And so the core belief system again comes and says, oh, this is easily said, but we have to understand this. It will take time. All of that is again your belief system, right? At this moment, you can close your eyes and say, I am God. I am God. I am not different from God. And just be in that, in that state of mind. Whatever the idea of God means to you at this moment, become that. Be that. Don't say, I am God, but tell yourself, I don't know when I will experience this. I don't know when I will experience it. Then you will spend your entire life just simply uttering, I am God, but never experiencing it because your core belief system is constantly registering this mantra as, when will am I going to experience divinity? When is that going to happen? As if that is a distant experience that is somehow going to magically come to you. The idea of the I am God mantra, which Baba so beautifully gave on his birthday, no ordinary day, on his birthday, is given as the greatest gift now in 1983. I am God. Just at that moment, be God. Whatever that means, the idea of God, whatever it means to you, be that God. Enjoy that. And then come back. So the question is, and why can't I be there in all the time and so on? Swami gave us a very beautiful example. I don't know if I have time for that. You know what? I will finish it again. Swami gives us an example of Hanuman. He said, Vibhishna asks Hanuman, what is your relation with Rama? And Hanuman says, when I am in my body consciousness, I am a servant and he's my master. I do what he tells me to do. When I am with my emotions, then I become his devotee. He becomes my God. But in my meditation, in my jnana, he and I are one. And Swami told us all these three are not different. They are three different reflections of the same reality. You being God in the body form expresses itself as a servant master relationship. It is an expression of that reality of you being God. The same father goes to the work, he's called sir, boss, or whatever. When he comes home, he's called dad. That same dad becomes a donkey for his 2-year-old who says, I want to ride my donkey and my pony. So he crawls on his knees. The CEO of a billion-dollar company comes and crawls on his knees, and his 2-year-old sits on his back and yanks him, saying, donkey, go faster, right? So the relationship changes the expression, but the truth remains the same. So the relation I am God, the truth of I am God manifests itself as a servant and master. The truth that I am God manifests itself in the emotions as devotee and God. The truth that I am God manifests itself in its entirety in wisdom, saying, I am God, I am God, I am not different from God. So you're not losing that I am God just because you are devoted to Baba or you're singing his bhajans and you're doing his worship. You're not losing that. It is a different form of expressing it. So when you sing Prema Mudita Manase Kaho Ram, 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 you are losing yourself in the joy of that self, the bliss of being Ram, of being one with Sai. That is what we end up worshiping our own higher self. We fall in love with our own higher self. And that self is not different from Sai because Sai exists in every atom, every molecule. The consciousness of Sai is not separate from you and me. And therefore, this path allows us to experience the Sai in its true cosmic form. And that kind of practice, that kind of knowledge always expresses itself in selfless love and unity. Wherever there is discord in yourself, in your family, in your community, or in an organization, remember that that principle is broken. That principle has to reflect in you so that your family can stay united. Because in that principle of selflessness, there is only inclusion, no exclusion. There is only inclusion, nothing else. So let us therefore offer our deepest gratitude to this divine teacher on this most beautiful day, a humble pranams. Thank you all for your patience. I think we have about 15 odd minutes for questions. So I'll hand it over back to you, Praveen.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Sundar. It's very, very inspiring. So I've received a few questions. So maybe in the interest of time, I'll just pick maybe two or three of them and we'll see how it goes. And if we have time, probably I'll get in more. And we want to utilize your time to the maximum extent possible as well. So
Yeah.
one such question was, what does it mean to turn inward?
Turning inward is, as I just spoke, and I will take points from what I spoke so it becomes easier. Turning inward is introspecting your core belief system. Ask yourself, what is it that drives my life? What are the belief systems that drive my life? What are the values that I hold? I'm not talking of good and bad at all here. Don't get caught into this good values, bad values, and all of that. What are the values? What are the core beliefs that I'm holding on, which I've just assumed to be mine? Can I explore that? Can I open that Pandora's box and work on that core belief system and change that? And so turning inward is going deep within you, into your psyche, into yourself, and asking, what is it that I wake up to? What is the reflection I see in the mirror when I look into the eyes of that reflection? What is it that I see? Do I see a divine being? Do I see an individual? What is it that I see? And you might say, what should I see? I don't know that answer. That is the beauty. Spirituality is not dogma. I can't tell you, oh, this is what you should see. You should see a light and all of that. No, that becomes dogmatic. All I'm asking you is, if you turn inward, you go inward and bring out your core value system, core belief system, and bring it out. Face those ghosts in the closet. So that's what I mean by going inward.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Sundar. So one of the question is, what are some of the ways one can experientially distance oneself from the ego?
You see, just as I said, spirituality is inclusion. Here again, the question reflects the core belief system of the questioner, because we are assuming we need to distance ourselves from the ego. We are assuming that the ego is somehow an impediment in the path. The ego is not impediment in the path. What is impediment is relying on the ego for everything. Let me give a small example. You light a candle at night, or let us say you put your bedroom light on, um, and you leave it on in the night. Because why? Because there is no sunlight. There is no other light that you would need light in the home. So when it comes evening times, you put the lights in your home, right? Or you light a candle. Night passes, dawn comes, the sun rises. So at 8 in the morning, the sun is nice, up and bright, shining. Do you need the light still in your home? Most probably not. Because the light of the sun is powerful enough to light every nook and corner in your home. And when that light exists, then this small light becomes redundant. You don't have to take steps to distance and say, how do I distance myself? Why is this light not being put off? You will automatically realize, and you go and put off the switch. Why? Because you realize, I don't need this anymore. I have the sunlight. So rather than focusing how to distance myself from the ego, which is impossible, we can't do, because you can't put off the switch in the night saying, I don't want this, I want the sunlight, but it is nighttime. So when we are ignorant, when we are not aware of our real self, simply saying ego is bad, I don't want to have ego is ridiculous. Because if you don't have ego, then what do you have? What is the I in you? It means nothing. So you have to wait for the sun to rise. Then automatically you will put off the light. And even if the light is on, which I hope you don't do to save electricity, but nevertheless, in the anecdote, even if the light is on, lamp is burning, that lamp has little or no significance. You're not relying on that for light. You are now relying on the sun that is the source of light. And so when Don't focus on distancing ego. Don't focus on getting rid of Maya and delusion and how to overcome negative tendencies. What do I do? How do I overcome all this fear? No, you are working on the wrong path. You can't overcome these. The reason why they exist is because the sun has not risen. So focus on awakening the sun. Focus on going back to that supreme truth, examining your core belief and planting the seed of this divine truth in you that, you know what? The universe begins and ends in me. The I in me that has stayed through from birth and until death perhaps can last beyond death. And therefore, I'll rely on that I. And that kind of contemplation will slowly open door. And that those experiences stemming from that is the sun awakening. When that happens, then the little fears slowly disappear. Because at the back of your mind and the core belief system has changed. And so you don't focus on insecurity, danger, what will happen to me, all of that. You will not function from a platform of fear or greed or anxiety anymore. You will slowly relinquish that platform and you will begin to rely on this platform of eternal peace, a source that is unending in its capacity to give. So rather than focusing on how to overcome negativity, how to overcome ego, what do I do to overcome these, how do I control my mind and all of that, it doesn't work like that. You start working on the other side. That is why Baba didn't give you a mantra to overcome ego. He didn't say, start saying, I am not the body, I am not the mind. He didn't say that. Because that comes much later. As a realization, Adi Shankara sang that. Mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham. Right? But then he always says Shivoham, Shivoham. So that is another approach. But Baba told us very simply, start saying, I am God, I am God, I am not different from God. I am not different from God. The God I seek is the God I am. And therefore, then let that settle in gently. And then watch the magic happen. All the other things will slowly go away. The little doership and all of that vanishes. Good question, though. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Sundar. So there's one other question, which is interesting. It says, because we did discuss all through the year about free will and destiny. If everything is predestined, why don't I enjoy the show?
Swami gave us a very wonderful anecdote. But before I go there, a very simple, straightforward answer is you don't enjoy it because you made up your mind not to enjoy it. It's based on your perception. Why don't we enjoy some things? Why do we enjoy some things? Because we have expectations that we build up. So I go to a movie with a certain expectation. When that expectation is not met, I say I didn't enjoy the movie. Where somebody else who had no expectations will go and enjoy the movie. When somebody else, a child will say, I like it, it's so cool in the summer, I just want to go and sleep inside. So there are different people who enjoy from the very same experience because of certain expectations or the lack of expectations. So many of us don't enjoy our life the way it unfolds is because we have certain expectations. And most of those expectations are based on what others are experiencing. Somebody else has a wonderful house. I also need a 6-bedroom house or a 10-bedroom house. Why am I not getting a 10-bedroom house? So I built an expectation and that expectation is not met. I say I'm not enjoying. So that's one side. As far as this destiny is concerned and free will and all of that. Baba explains this in the form of a game. You are in a game field. The rules of the game is predetermined. The rules are predetermined. The size of the football field is predetermined. The goalposts are predetermined. How you play the game is not predetermined. That is what we need to understand. The broad parameters are what are predetermined. How you play the game is entirely up to you. So the game of life is in our hands. It is not predetermined. What is predetermined is that there are 5 elements. There is youth, there is birth, there is death to the body, there is transient, the 5 elements of earth, water, fire, space, and air, they combine together. They will constantly function in your body, in your psyche, in your way of life. and they will merge back into these elements. And how do I use these 5 elements to my advantage or otherwise? How do I use and harness the energy of these 5 elements so that I can play this game of life wonderfully is entirely up to me. I have the freedom. We have a weird idea that if I lose a lottery, it's predetermined. If I win a lottery, it's predetermined. These are all our illusions that we are built around. What we do with our lives is entirely free and up to us. What is determined are the rules of creation, which are kept in place. And then finally, we go even beyond all of that. Like the referee, we begin to watch the game. And like the spectators, then even beyond that, like the spectators, we sit safely and enjoy the game being played. So that is like the eternal witness, just simply watch. So till that happens, we are in the game as players. It's up to us. And so that is free will. What is determined are the rules of the game, the 5 elements, and so on. The 5 koshas, the tools that are available to us for our sadhana, those are all determined for us, given to us. How we use those tools, how we use the Annamaya kosha, the physical sheet, is up to us. I can eat 10 pizzas a day and ruin my health right now if I wish to. Or I can practice and maintain and age very gracefully and maintain a biological age, which is 20 years younger than where I am today. I can do that. That is entirely up to me. But Annamaya Kosha has its rules and regulations. So I have to follow within that. I can say, okay, how do I harness the energy of Annamaya Kosha? The same thing with Pranamaya Kosha. My breath. How can I harness the energy of the breath? Within that lies the mind. How subtle is the mind? And therefore, I can get into this. All of this is free will. I hope I made that clear. Thank you for that question, though.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just trying to unmute myself. One other question is also on if we give up fruits of actions, what is the motivation to act?
Great question. I love that question. I've asked myself that question a lot because it goes into the concept of vairagya, detachment. They say, what is the point of being detached? I mean, if I'm detached, how can I act well? How can I be productive? Somehow that's again coming from a core belief that we have believed that detachment equals lack of productivity. But let me give you an example here. At this moment, think of your favorite actor in Hindi films, Bollywood or Hollywood or anyone, I don't care, actor, actresses. Think of your favorite one. So I'm going to name one. Let's say we call him Shah Rukh Khan. He's not my favorite, but nevertheless, he's popular. Everybody knows him. So Shah Rukh Khan. So let's say Shah Rukh Khan. All right. Now Shah Rukh Khan plays many roles in many movies. How was he able to play so well? So when he's playing the role of a beggar, oh my gosh, he does such a good job. He's playing the role of a villain, psychotic man. He does such a good job. He's playing the role of a flamboyant youth. Oh my gosh, he does such a good job. How does he do that? Now, when he's playing the role, Khan knows that he is not that person actually, that he is much different. He is not the beggar that he is playing. He's not the psychotic man he is playing. He knows it. He is detached to the role he is playing. And because he's detached, he does his action or acting very well. He plays his role very well. Imagine if he really got absorbed into the role so much so he lost his identity and began to truly believe he's a psychotic guy, or truly believe he's a beggar, or truly believe he's this flamboyant youth when he's actually 60 years or 50 years of age, and he starts dancing and prancing around. If he truly believes he's that role he's playing, then he actually becomes less productive. You and I will not put him in our list of first best 10 actors. It is because he's detached from the role and he's aware of his real self. Oh, I am Khan, I am playing a role, and therefore let me do it to my best of my ability. He becomes more productive. So here, detachment actually increases productivity and motivates a person to do it best. And they make it fun, they make it playful because they know they are not that. So you and I have identified ourselves with the role. That is the unfortunate part. We think we are what we are playing, but we don't realize we are not. We are playing a role. A doctor is not allowed to perform surgery, or a surgeon is not allowed to perform a surgery on his own daughter or some of his very close kith and kin. Why? Because of attachment, because he identifies himself emotionally with that person on the table, and therefore it is possible that his judgment will lack the dexterity and the clear vision that he should have on the operation table. And therefore, there's an unspoken rule, I believe, that you don't perform surgery on your own kith and kin, on your own daughter, on your child, or your spouse. You allow somebody else to do it so they can observe it, detach in a detached way. Detachment, vairagya, actually brings productivity. When you don't expect fruits of action, that motivates you. Why? Because you are now getting enough time to focus on the excellence of the action. When we are focused on the fruits of the action, the performance of the action can be compromised, and does get compromised most often, most of the time. If I am going to sing a bhajan into a microphone, if I am thinking of, oh my God, the bhajan has to be done well. Oh my God, I hope everybody likes this bhajan. Oh my God, I hope I sing well. If I'm so focused on the fruit of my action and I become so nervous that my actual rendering of the bhajan is most often compromised. But if I say, you know what, I don't know what the outcome is, but right now, let me focus on Shruti and Talam, and I'll render this bhajan. And I focus on the bhajan and put in my full effort. In other words, bring excellence into my action without worrying about the fruits of action. Guess what is going to be the outcome? Your guess is only right. But my focus is not on the outcome. So the idea of letting go of the fruits of action was built in so that you focus and give yourself time to build excellence into your action and not compromise the present moment, thinking of the fruit of this action that is going to happen in the future. The mindfulness in the action is lost when we are focused on what is this going to get me. Goals were never the vision of Sanatana Dharma. It was, that is why we say offering, make it an offering. When you make it an offering to the divine, you make sure that the flower that you offer is not a spoiled flower. You make sure you pick the best flower. You make sure you light the best incense. Why? Because it is an offering to the divine. What if you are taking that same attitude into your work? Whether it is a dish you make for your family, or whether it is a little coding that you do in your computer, or whatever it is that I do, can I bring excellence into my everyday action? Then it becomes automatically an offering. And of course, the result of each of these actions will always be successful. I don't have to even pay attention to that. And that is the essence of this whole concept of don't worry about the fruits of action. Focus on the action, focus on the excellence. Fruits will take care of by itself. Thank you.
Sure, Sundar. Thank you. Thank you so much. I know we are at the top of the hour. Firstly, on behalf of all our Boston Sub-Region Center members, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for making time. In the first call that I made a request, you did not even hesitate, but just said yes. So for that. And I think it's been very inspiring and blissful to hear to you. It's always great to hear to you. But hearing from you on this Guru Poornima day is even more special.
Thank you.
Inspiring. Thank you so much. If you have any final thoughts, Sundar, maybe you could go ahead, and then we'll conclude with the prayers for today's session. Once again, thank you so much.
I just want to take this moment again to thank you, Praveen, for giving me this opportunity. It's always the most humbling thing to sit and speak about this divine teacher, and more humbling to be able to share these lofty perspectives that he has left us with. He's changed all our lives. And all we need is to carry on in this path of love, selflessness, and unity. That's all I have to say. Thank you again for all your patience and allowing me to go nonstop for the last 90 minutes. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.